in order to remove dispute.
نعم. عندنا ويقول الله سبحانه وتعالى والصلح خير.
Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, and to reconcile, this is better.
وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم الصلح جائز بين المسلمين إلا صلحا حرم حلالا أو أحل حراما.
Rasulullah said that to reconcile it is permissible between the Muslims as long as it does not involve making that which is haram halal or making that which is halal haram.
عندنا الصلح أنواع لكن مقصود هنا مثل عندنا الصلح بين الزوجين، الصلح مثلا بين الإمام والبغاة، الصلح بين المسلمين والكفار، هذه أنواع الصلح. كنا الصلح هنا مقصود به الصلح في المعاملات.
So the word reconcile that's discussed in the verses in the Quran and the Hadith applies to multiple types of disputes between two spouses, between a governor or a sultan and a rebel party. These are all forms of reconciliation between warring parties, between spouses, etc. It's all considered sulh. But what's intended by this chapter here is reconciliation when there's dispute in matters of wealth.
نعم. عندنا مثال أو صورة للصلح في هذا الباب.
The example of of reconciliation in this chapter.
مثلا يدعي زيد على عمر بأن لزيد على عمر مثلا 1000 دينار.
So for example, Amr makes a claim against Zaid that he owes him 1,000 dinar.
يقول فخوصم فيه عمر، يعني عمر هذا الذي عليه الدين فعل خصام بينه وبين زيد.
So the person من يدعي
عمر، عندنا قلنا على عمر.
So
بأن أنكر مثلا.
So the one party, Zaid, Amr for example, he claims that there is money owed to him. So the Zaid claims that there is money owed to him of 1,000 rand against Amr. Amr then goes when he disputes the claim against him of 1,000 dinar. He says, I don't owe you 1,000 dinar. And then when he disputes this is now when this chapter comes into play.
فعندنا بعد هذه الخصومة مثلا والإنكار يقر مثلا عمر أن عليه 1000 دينار.
So Zaid who claimed that Amr owes him 1,000 dinar. Amr said, I don't owe you 1,000 dinar. And then he says, okay, fine, I do owe you 1,000 dinar.
بعد إقرار يا عمر يقول له خلاص صالحتك من 1000 دينار على نصفها أو على 500 مثلا. زيد.
So after Amr, who initially denied that he owed Zaid money, he said that okay, I accept, I owe you money. But then the person who is owed the money, Zaid, he then says, okay, fine, you've accepted that you owe me money, but I will be willing to come to an agreement as for a different amount.
فيقول عمر بعد ذلك قبلت.
And then Amr, for example, the person who owes the money, he then says, okay, I accept the terms.
مثل النبي عليه الصلاة والسلام رأى اثنين من الصحابة يتنازعون.
For example, there was a scenario where Rasulullah saw two of the Sahaba coming into a dispute.
حتى ارتفعت الأصوات.
And to the point that they were raising their voices in dispute.
قال فسمعهم النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم وأصواتهم هؤلاء ترتفع لأن على أحدهما دين للآخر.
So Rasulullah heard them raising their voices and that the one was claiming that the one had a debt owed to him.
فقال النبي للصحابة الذي له الدين يا كعب، قال لبيك يا رسول الله، قال أشار أن ضع النصف، فقال الصحابي فعلت يا رسول الله.
So when they heard this dispute occurring, the Sahabi who was owed the money, he was claiming there was money owed to him, Rasulullah said to him and indicated to him, Ya Ka'ab, it's his name, the Sahabi's name, he said that cut half of the amount off, meaning that allow half of it to go off. And then the Sahabi said, yes, Ya Rasulullah, I will allow to forgo half of the amount.
فقال قم فقضي الدين الذي عليك.
And then when he said he's going to give half, then the other party who was the claim against him now said, okay, fine, I will pay the 50% of what I was initially claimed against me.
فعندنا الصلح هذا لا يجوز الصلح إلا إذا كان هناك سبق خصوم، يعني خصومة بين زيد وعمر مثلا.
So the scenario of the contract which occurs as we described can only occur with these words, the contract of reconciliation, when there is a preceding dispute and a denial of a debt owed.
فإن بعد ذلك يقر الذي عليه الدين، بأن أنكر أولا ثم يقر، فإذا أقر الآن للحق لصاحب الدين أن يقول صالحتك على نصفها أو على ربعها مثل هكذا.
So once the dispute occurs and the party who has the debt against him, in other words, he's denying that he initially has a debt, that he owes a debt, then he accepts, okay, I do owe a debt. At this juncture, the person who is owed the money then is now permitted to engage in the contract of reconciliation, what is known as sulh here, where he now decides to either forgo a portion of it or etc.
والصلح كما عندكم هنا في الكتاب، ويصح الصلح مع الإقرار في الأموال وما أفضى إلى الأموال.
So in the text here it says that reconciliation, the contract of reconciliation is valid when someone accepts, makes iqrar of that he is owed money, that he owes money, or that which leads to money.
في الأموال مثلا قد يكون هذا المال عين وقد يكون هذا المال دين.
So the amount owed that's claimed here can either be money that is physical or something that is of wealth that is physical owned, or it can be something that is a debt that doesn't exist physically but it's a debt that's owed to the person.
دين كما ذكرنا المثال قبل قليل.
The debt is, for example, when this person claims 1,000, you owe me 1,000 dinars. That's a debt.
باني يكون عليه دين 1000 دينار مثلا ثم ينكر ثم يقر فيتصالح على نصفها مثلا.
So for example, there's a person claims 1,000, he is owed 1,000 dinar, and then the person with the claim is against, he initially denies it, then he accepts, okay, I do owe you money, and then at that juncture, the person who wants the money, right, he is now allowed to engage in the contract where he reconciles for half of the amount.
وقد يكون عندنا الصلح على مال لكن هذا المال عين ليس دين.
Yeah, so in this example, the debt, the money owed here, the wealth owed here is a debt which exists in his seat of responsibility, not a physical item at the moment. Then there's another scenario where it could be claiming against a physical item that exists in a physical item which is owed to him, which must be returned to him, for example.
كمثلا عندنا زيد استعارة من عمر مثلا نقول دار، أو عفوا نقول عمر استعارة من زيد دار.
The same two disputing parties. Amr borrowed from Zaid a house. Borrowed his house
ليسكن فيه مثلا.
in order to stay in the house.
بعدين بعد مرور مثلا سنة قال لزيد لعمر أعطني الدار حقي، قال عمر أبدا الدار حقي ليس حقك، أنكر.
So Amr, who is now living in the house, who is now for free, right? After a year, Zaid says, okay, can I please come live in my house again now? And Amr says, what? This is my house. I'm living in this house. He denies that he owes him the house.
فحصل بينهم خصومة ورفع الدعوة عند الحاكم أو عند غير حاكم مثلا.
So in this scenario, here there's a physical item. It's the house, right? So the Amr who denies that he owes Zaid the property, he claims it's not his property. There's a dispute and there's a denial of him owing the money. This is now raised to a judge, or it doesn't have to be raised to a judge, it could be raised to a third party.
ثم أقر عمر.
Then Amr, who was living in the house, who initially borrowed the house to live in there, he then says accepts the fact that this is Zaid's house.
قال له نعم أنا دارك صح كلامك وسامحني بس أنا محتاج أسكن فيه. قال خلاص صالحتك على نصفها لك الدار ونصفها لي.
So after Amr was living in the house, then says, okay, fine, I admit, please forgive me. I this is your house. I'm living in the house, but I need to live in the house. So can we come to an agreement where in this house? And then Zaid says, okay, fine, we can come to agreement that you can have half of the house, or live in half of the house, and I'll live in the other half of the house.
يقول عندنا يصح الصلح في الأموال وما أفضى إلى الأموال، أي ما أدى إلى الأموال.
So in the scenario we mentioned here, so this is the cases where the dispute is with regards to wealth, and in the text here says that which leads to wealth.
مثلا عندنا مثلا زيد قتل عمر عمدا.
For example, the same two parties now, Zaid, he kills Amr. Right, so he killed him.
فعندنا ما الذي يجب؟ يجب القصاص.
So what is obligatory now? He killed the person, obviously with intent and with something that will kill most of the time. What's obligatory here is that Zaid has to what's due against him is qisas, retribution. They can take his life, right?
فيجوز على ورثة الميت اللي هو عندنا المقتول هذا عمر أن يقولوا صالحناك من القصاص على مثلا 100,000 300,000 مليون.
Yeah. So in this scenario here, Zaid, who killed Amr, right? Amr is now obviously passed away. So the inheritors of Amr have the right to take Zaid's life, right? But they also have the right to make an act of reconciliation where they don't choose to take his life, but rather they choose a compensation of wealth in place of taking his life. For example, we won't take your life provided that you pay us 100,000, a million rand, etc. And then that's an agreement, a contract that they must undergo.
فإذا وافق حصل الصلح ويكون معفو عن قصاص فيجب عليه ما اتفقوا عليه.
So then what happens is that if they agree to this, then they forgo the right of physical retribution to take his life, and then what's due then is the debt of wealth, which is 1,000,000 rand, whatever amount they agreed upon.
كذلك عندنا قال عندكم في المتن والصلح عندنا نوعان.
And then further on in the text, the author describes it that the types of the category of reconciliation is of two types.
صلح إبراء وعندنا صلح معاوضة.
So reconciliation can be either ibra, which is where I forgo an amount, where in said we'll discuss that, or muawada, where there is a reciprocal item given in return.
طيب صلح إبراء قال اقتصاره من حقه على بعضه كما ذكرنا من 1000 دينار إلى نصفها مثلا أو من دار إلى نصفها، هذا يسمونه إبراء اقتصاره من حقه على بعضه.
So the word here is ibra, which means to absolve a portion of the debt or the entire debt. So the site describes it as absolving means absolving a portion of what you are owed. That's the first type.
نعم. وقال في المتن ولا يجوز تعليقه على شرط، مثلا يقولوا إذا دخل شهر مثلا رمضان فقد صالحتك، لا ما يجوز تعليقه على شرط.
So just the added condition here is that when someone engages in the contract of reconciliation, he says that I reconcile with you after when the month of Ramadan comes, for example. That's you are adding a condition to when the reconciliation will occur. This is not permissible. You can't add a condition of when it will occur.
لأن عندنا العقودات عندنا لا تصح فيها التعليق غالبا.
So you cannot suspend it on the occurrence of something occurring. Your acts of your transactions must occur as immediate, unsuspended transactions. You can't say when this happens, I engage in a reconciliation with you.
عندنا النوع الثاني من الصلح وهو الصلح معاوضة.
So the second type of reconciliation, as we said, was when someone forgoes a portion of the right or the entire right or the amount of wealth. The second scenario is that when there is muawada, where there is a recompense, where you get something and get something, you give something and get something in return.
صلح معاوضة قال عدوله عن حقه إلى شيء آخر.
So the other definition that the text gives is that when there's a compensation here is that when you move from one right to a different right.
مثال اللي ذكرناه قبل قليل مثلا في الدار.
The example we gave here was in the example of the house.
مثلا قال زيد لعمر أعطى زيد لعمر الدار استعارة إعارة.
No, so Zaid was the owner of the house, lends the usage of the house to Amr, who's allowed to live in there for a year, for example.
طيب بعد ما أعطاه إعارة جاء بعد سنة طلبها منه فأنكر عمر قال ما أعطيتني شيئا ثم أقر أن أعطاه أن الدار دار زيد.
So Zaid then after a year comes back to Amr, says, can I please have my house back? And then Zaid says, I don't know about this being your house. This is my house, right? Then what happens on the third step is that then Amr, who is living in the house now and is now not renting it but living there for free, he then says that, okay, fine, I accept that this is your house.
بعدما أقره قال له زيد خلاص صالحتك من الدار هذه كلها على السيارة حقك هذه.
At this juncture, after Amr accepts the fact that he does owe the house or to return the house to Zayd then says, we can engage in a reconciliation agreement where I live for half of the house and you live in the other half of the house.
بعد ذلك الآن فقال قبلته.
And then Amr accepts.
فقال في المتن ويجري عليه حكم البيع. كيف يعني الآن كأنه حصل بيع الدار، كأنه اشترى الدار بالسيارة.
So in this scenario, when he uses the words, I reconcile with you for half of the house, the rules of a normal trade apply in this scenario. It says, if he's selling the house.
أو باع الدار بالسيارة، يعني الدار قال خذ الدار لك يا عمر وأعطني السيارة مقابلك. حصل بيع الآن.
For example, he might say, okay, you can live in half of the house if you give me your car. And then what happens here is that there is now an exchange of the half of the house for the car. So then Amr now has to give his car to Zayd, and then he gets to own half of the house, and Zayd lives in the other half.
فيثبت فيه أحكام البيع.
And here you apply all the rules of normal bay' or trade which we discussed previously.
فمثلا عندنا يثبت فيه خيار المجلس، خيار الشرط، خيار رد العيب، نفس ما مر معنا.
For example, all the rulings pertaining to the right of rescinding a contract whilst you're in the gathering of the contract, that the right of rescinding a contract if you find a defect, the right of rescinding a contract within 3 days if you stipulate that. All those issues we discussed previously when discussing the beginning of these chapters, that those same rules apply here as well.
كذلك يثبت في العلم بالثمن وكونه مالا منتفع به شرعا.
Now, the same rules apply in terms of what are the preconditions for the items of trade. For example, that the item you must be able to benefit from it, etc. You must know what the item is being purchased for. You must know the values of the items, etc.
فعندنا قد يكون العدول عن حقه إلى غيره بمثل البيع، يأخذ السيارة كلها، أو لا ممكن ما يأخذ السيارة كلها لكن ينتفع بالسيارة فيكون يجري في أحكام الإجارة.
So in the scenario we described where the reconciliation is for he can own half of the house as long as he pays Zayd a car, right? So here this is obviously physical items being sold for another item, so you get the rulings of trade. Right? Normal bay'. But you can also construct it in this way where instead of him purchasing half of the house for the selling of the car, but rather for the benefit of the vehicle for a period of time, and they will discuss that it's like a lease agreement. He leases the car for a year instead of selling the car for him, and therefore they would apply the rules of leasing, which we haven't discussed yet.
مثلا بدل ما يقول له صالحتك من الدار على السيارة يقول له صالحتك من الدار على أن تنتفع بالسيارة مدة سنة.
So the two different types of reconciliations you can form is where he says that I can reconcile with you for half of this house in compensation with a car, so that you give me a car to sell me the car. Or I reconcile with you for half of the house in order to take benefit of your vehicle for the duration of a year. So then that's now a lease. He's taking a lease on the vehicle in lieu of the half of the house.
نعم. الآن نتكلم معكم عن حقوق المشتركة.
So now we're going to discuss the issue of when you're discussing rights that are shared. So when you have homes and they are shared rights.
وهذه من المسائل المهمة الواقعية كثير.
So the scenarios at the end of the chapter here with the discuss occur in abundance in our day and age.
أولا في عندنا طريق نافذ وفي عندنا طريق غير نافذ ويسمى الدرب المشترك.
So there are two types of roads. One road is a thoroughfare. The road continues through and there are houses on the sides. And the other road is what we would call a cul-de-sac or a dead-end road, right? So there is no way through.
مثلا طريق نافذ اللي هو ماشي مكان مغلق من جهتين بل مفتوح.
No, so in both sides, so the example side gives is that it's a path where both sides of the road are open. You can travel from on one side to the other side, straight through.
طريق غير نافذ يسمى درب مشترك تمشي فيه يقول مغلق لابد ترجع مرة ثانية.
So a closed road or a cul-de-sac would be obviously you go through the one side, and in order to exit you have to go around the same way.
وهذا موجود ترونه كثير.
نعم. So this occurs a lot.
نعم. قد يكون الإنسان أول شيء أيضا أريد أن أشرح ما معنى في شيء اسمه عندنا روشن. روشن هذا اللي هو خشب أو خارج الحائط.
So the first thing defined here is what is known in Arabic here as a roshan. The roshan here would be it's a wooden platform that extends out from a wall in the sky. Not in the sky, but I mean like
خارج من الحائط ممتد في الهواء.
So it exits out from the wall and it's on a platform above you.
مثل الآن البلكونة.
So for example a balcony.
مثل الآن في الحكم. طيب كذلك عندنا في شيء اسمه عندنا صابات. صابات هذا جسر مبني بين بنائين.
And then there's another type of structure that can be built. So the one we discussed is a balcony. The other type of structure you build is that when you have two adjacent buildings and you build almost a bridge from the one building to the other building.
مثلا هنا طريق.
So there's a path between the two buildings.
وأنا لي بيت هنا وبيت هنا.
And there's a building on the right and a building on the left.
فبدل ما أنزل إلى الشارع أفتح لي منفذ من الأعلى يسمونه صابات. إذن أمشي من بيتي إلى هنا إلى هنا ومن هنا إلى هنا.
For example, I have a house on the right side of the road and I had a house on the left side of the road. So instead of me having to come out to my house, walk across the street and go to my other house, why can't I just build a bridge from my one house to my other house and I can just walk across like that?
نعم. وفي شيء اسمه عندنا ميزاب المكان ما يسيل منه الماء.
And then the third thing which we're describing a structure which you build in a public area would be a mizab, where there is basically it's like kind of like a pipe area where the water from the roof falls off.
مثلا الناس يفعلون ميزاب أعلى عشان إذا نزل أمطار يخرج لا يصب لا يبقى في البيت مثلا.
Yeah, so basically it's like a gutter which has an opening into the road.
نعم. فعندنا يقول هنا في المتن ويجوز للإنسان أن يشرع روشنا في طريق نافذ بحيث لا يتضرر المار به. الآن أنا إذا أردت أن أبني هذا الروشن أو البلكونة أو الصابات أو الميزاب يجوز، لكن بشرط الشرط عندنا ألا يتضرر المار به.
So the text says it is permissible, it is valid for a person to build a balcony or the sabat or that bridge we discussed over a road, provided that it does not harm any of the passers-by.
فإن كان مثلا سيحصل هناك ضرر إذا أخرجته فلا يجوز ذلك.
هذا في طريق نافذ.
أي كلام نقول في طريق نافذ.
So we're discussing obviously the scenario where it's a thoroughfare. It's not a cul-de-sac. It's not closed off. It's an open thoroughfare from both sides. Here we're saying that in this scenario you can build a balcony or you can build a bridge that crosses over, provided that no one that passes by is being harmed by that structure.
وضحت لنا في طريق النافذ ها؟ طيب هذا عندنا لابد عندنا يكون أن لا يضر المار ضررا لا يحتمل عادة.
What amount of difficulty or harm that are we construing here is that it's an amount of difficulty that is not people are ordinarily accustomed to. People are ordinarily accustomed to it, doesn't account.
فإن كان الطريق محل المشاة يعني محل يمشي الناس فيه ما في سيارات تمشي فيها إلا محل ما الناس تمشي فيها فلا بد أن يرفع بحيث أنه يكون لو كان هناك شخص طويل وحامل شيء يكون هذا فوقه حتى لا يضره.
An example of what would be harm that would occur is that, for example, if it's a walking path, it's a path that people walk through, not people that travel with cars, then the structure you build must be above a degree that a tall person, when he walks and he has something on top of his head, he would be able to comfortably pass underneath that item. Right?
وإذا كان عندنا الطريق محل القوافل ومحل السيارات لابد يرتفع أكثر بحيث أنه يمر تحته القوافل ولا يصطدم بهذا الروشن أو البلكونة أو الصابات أو الميزاب.
Another scenario would be if it's a path where cars travel, trucks travel, camels that are loaded travel. These are obviously much higher. So in this case, in this type of path, the structure you build, whether it's a balcony or the bridge we spoke about, it has to be above those people who pass through that thing, that road, such as vehicles, trucks, etc.
مثلا في طريق يمشي السيارة لكن السيارات صغيرة فهذا لا بأس يكون فوقها. في طريق كبير يمشي سيارة كبيرة زي الشاحنات كبيرة فلا بتكون أعلى من ذلك.
For example, you get a road that has just normal cars that pass through, and you get a road which has trucks that pass through. The one that has trucks will obviously has to be much higher for it to be permissible for you to build that structure.
كذلك عندنا لا يؤدي هذا مثلا زي الصعوبات هذا اللي هو الجسر ده يؤدي إلى ظلمة في الشارع كان الصعوبات طويل فلا يؤدي ذلك أن يكون الشارع مظلم إظلاما لا يحتمل عادة مثلا أو مخالفا للعادة عفوا لا يظلم إظلاما مخالفا للعادة.
So another condition, we said that it must not harm anyone that walks past, such that they can walk comfortably past it. Similarly, another example of harm would be where it must not cause there to be, must not black out the road. It must be such a massive bridge that you black out the entire road and no one can walk through the road because it's black. It's completely dark. But to what degree? To the degree that most people can manage to pass through comfortably, right? Customarily, people find this not too dark, right? If it reaches a point where people customarily find this too dark to pass through, then it's not permissible for you to build such a large bridge, for example.
نعم. يقول عندنا ماذا؟ قال بعد ذلك عندنا طيب ايش دخل هذا الباب في الصلح؟
What on earth does this have to do with the chapter of reconciliation?
نقول هنا المسألة هذه هل يجوز الصلح مثلا واحد يبغى يبني مثلا في طريق نافذ صابات أو روشن أو بلكونة أو شيء فقال سأعطي مثلا فلوس للجيران مثلا عشان يرضوا بأن هذا نقول لا يصح بناء الروش لا يصح الصلح على ذلك. لماذا؟ لأن هذا محله في الهواء والهواء لا يفعل فيه عقد.
Well, how is this related to the chapter of reconciliation? Because if you are a neighbor and you want to ensure your neighbors don't have issues with you, what do? You pay them money, right? So here you're engaging a contact, you're paying them money in lieu of what? In order that they give you the allowance to build the structure over there. But our fuqaha say that the structure in the air there, as long as it's not causing harm over there, is something which you cannot contract upon. It's not their right to contract. You can't pay them to give you the right to build in the air, which is basically a free space. That's why it falls in this chapter over here. You cannot engage in the reconciliation with money for the air, the functional air, as long as it's providing no harm.
فإذا كان هو يضر فلا يصح أن أعطي مال لأحد الصلح في ذلك لا إلى الرعية الناس ولا حتى الحاكم.
So you cannot do this if it's bothering them. You cannot give them money to the neighbors nor to the government etc. for the right to build in that area.
وإذا كان لا يضر فافعل المجال واسع هذا في الهواء ما يضر ذلك.
if it is structured in a way that is completely harmless to them, you have the right to build it in that way regardless of what they say, and you are not allowed to pay them money for that.
أما أقول خذ أنت فلوس كذا خذ أنت عشان يمشوها إذا كان يضر فلا يجوز وإذا كان لا يضر فيجوز أصلا ولا حاجة إلى المال.
So if it's harmful to them, then you cannot pay them off. But if there's no harm occurring to anyone, then you can just build it, no problem.
فإن كان مثلا أنا أريد أن أفعل هذا لكن في ناس وهو لا يضر أصلا لا يضر وفي ناس يمنعوني قلت لهم خذوا المال لأجل يسكتوا بس. فنقول الفعل جائز وهذا بالنسبة لي جائز وهم حرام عليهم أن يمنعوني وأخذهم المال هم حرام عليهم لكن ليس حرام علي لأن أصلا الحق لي لا لهم. So
for example, what if your neighbor prevents you, says no you can't build here, but the structure is in terms of Sharia a legal structure. It's not harming, no, I just want to build a balcony. It's in the air. No one's getting harmed. You're not bothering them. So now what happens? They prevent me from doing this. So now they are what we say the oppressor, the dhalim. They don't have a right to oppress me because I have the right to build here. There's no harm occurring with this item. So can I give them money in order to make them be quiet? And our Sharia says that you can give them money because you have the right to build, right? But it's haram for them to take the money because they don't have the right to stop you from building it. So from your side, in order to get your right, you can give them some money just to keep them quiet so that you can build. But they are not allowed to take the money because it's haram for them to prevent you.
نعم. الآن نتكلم على إشراع الروشن أو الصابات أو الملكونة في الطريق غير النافذ اللي هو مسمى بالدرب.
So what about building a balcony or a sabat, or which is the bridge from one house to another house across a road, in a road which is not a thoroughfare, which is such as a cul-de-sac.
فنقول ماذا؟ نقول قد يكون هذا الدرب كله، هذا الطريق كله ما في إلا دار واحد فقط أو باب واحد نافذ فيه فقط.
It's possible that you can have a cul-de-sac where there's only one house with a door that enters into the cul-de-sac or to the dead end.
مثلا تقول طريق هكذا مسدود ارجع، لكن في قد يكون بيت واحد أو في 3 بيوت، لكن كل البيوت ال3 واحد منهم بابه من داخل الدرب واثنين بابه من خارج الدرب.
For example, you have a road and the houses that are in the road, all of them have the doors not into the cul-de-sac but out of the cul-de-sac. The main entrances are out of the cul-de-sac. But only one house has the door into the cul-de-sac.
فنقول إذا كان الطريق هذا لملك الواحد فيفعل الروشن والصابات ولا إشكال في ذلك.
So if it's only one person that has the money,
صاحب الدرب أيوه اللي بابه داخل.
نعم.
الذي نقول أن هذا ملك له.
طيب. So the person who has the door that enters into he's the only person who has a door. But there are other neighbors. But other neighbors have the doors onto another road, for example. They're not entering into the cul-de-sac. That person who has that door, that individual door of entering into the cul-de-sac, he has the right to build whatever he wants because he's the only one that's entering into that area.
لابد يفهمون إنه الطريق اللي هو غير النافذ إذا كان دار واحد هو فقط مثلا أو دور لكن باب واحد فهذا الطريق يسمى ملك لهذا الشخص.
So then what we say in this scenario here, either there's only one house in the cul-de-sac, that's scenario 1, then he has the right to do whatever he wants because he's the only house there. Or there are multiple homes but there's only one door entering onto the cul-de-sac. We say in this scenario that the rights of that cul-de-sac belong to the person who has the door entering over there.
نعم.
So he can do whatever he wants
فهو
into the cul-de-sac.
فما إذا قلنا أن هذا ملك له فيفعل ما يشاء من صابات ومن بلكونة من هذه الأشياء.
So if we say in the scenario that the rights of that cul-de-sac belong to that person, then he can do whatever he wants over there. He doesn't have to get the permission of the other neighbors.
قد يكون هذا طيب الطريق غير النافذ مشترك بين جماعة. كيف مشترك بين جماعة؟ كان هذا الطريق فيه دور مثلا عن يمينه وعن يساره وأبوابه متنافذة في الداخل.
Now obviously the corollary to this is that if you have a cul-de-sac and those 3 or 4 homes that are in the cul-de-sac have their doors entering into the cul-de-sac. Now this cul-de-sac is no longer considered the property of one. The rights of that cul-de-sac are not considered the property of an individual, but rather there are communal rights that occur there. Because there are multiple doors entering into there from different owners.
فنقول ماذا؟ يقول عندنا ففي هذه حالات قد يكون عندنا أراد أحد أن يفعل البلكونة من غير أهل الدرب. شوف لاحظ عندنا هات السبورة دي وين هذا عندنا؟ أين هو؟
Can we get the board?
شيث قل له هات القلم مع المساح.
What is this thing? The eraser, the whiteboard eraser and a pen, please. It's gonna. Is there a pen sheath? Oh, there's a pen.
لاحظ معي الآن عندنا
The image clear for the ladies?
أي لحظة هنا عندنا 1 2 3 هذا دار 1 دار 2 دار 3 دار 4 دار 5 دار 6.
So here we have 6 homes in the cul-de-sac.
هنا يسمى رأس الدرب.
So the area on the far right over here, you can see, is the entrance to the cul-de-sac, known as the head of the cul-de-sac, or in Arabic is known as رأس الدرب.
هنا يسمى آخر الدرب.
And on the far left, there you see there's a closed area. This is called the back of the cul-de-sac, or the آخر الدرب.
هنا يسمى الدرب المشترك.
So the area which is shared between these 6 homes is known as the communal area, or the communal darb or cul-de-sac.
طيب هنا عندنا دار، من هم اللي هم داخل الدار مشترك؟ من باب دارهم داخل الدار.
So who has the ownership or the beneficial rights to the communal cul-de-sac? One, those who have their doors entering into the communal cul-de-sac.
فنقول رقم 1 ورقم 3 ورقم 5 هم داخل الدرب.
So 1, 2, 1, 3, and 5. So 1, 3, and 5, they have their doors entering into the cul-de-sac, and those are the owners of the rights to the communal cul-de-sac.
لأن بابهم داخل الدرب.
So because their doors are entering into the cul-de-sac.
أما رقم 2 رقم 4 رقم 6 بابهم خارج الدرب.
So home number 2, 4, and 6, if you look carefully, their doors are entering outside of the cul-de-sac.
واضح الصورة؟
Is it clear, the picture?
طيب عندنا لو أراد أحد من هؤلاء 2 أو 4 أو 6 يفعلوا داخل الدرب في بيوتهم هنا أو هنا أو هنا روشن أو صابات أو مثلا نقول بلكونة، هل يصح لهم ذلك؟
So, for example, those who are not owners of the rights inside the cul-de-sac, such as number 2, 4, and 6, and they want to build a balcony or a bridge across the cul-de-sac, or or those things, can they do that?
نقول لهم ما يجوز لكم. أول شيء نقول الصلح على ذلك لا يجوز.
So engaging into a contract of compensation or reconciliation where you pay someone in order to be able to be allowed to have access to the communal cul-de-sac, that is not permissible.
لأنه لا يصح الصلح على الهواء.
Because you cannot engage in a contract that involves the free air.
طيب لكن قال أنا أريد أن بالإذن، وهل ممكن بالإذن؟ نقول نعم ممكن ذلك بالإذن.
So can I do it with permission only, without a compensation? And yes, it's permissible if you get permission.
طيب يستأذن من من؟
Who do you get permission from?
نقول يستأذن ممن هو شريكه.
So you get permission.
بإذن بقية الشركاء.
So you get permission from the remaining communal owners of the rights of that cul-de-sac.
مثلا نقول رقم 2.
For example, house number 2.
يريد يفعل هنا مثلا نقول بلكونة.
Someone, the house number 2 wants to build a balcony inside the communal cul-de-sac.
نقول طيب هذا إذا أراد يفعل هنا بلكونة يستأذن من قال يستأذن من بقية الشركاء. من بقية الشركاء هنا؟
So in the scenario of number 2, when he wants to build a balcony into the communal cul-de-sac, who does he seek permission from?
نقول بقية الشركاء هم رقم 5 ورقم 3.
So in the scenario here, who are considered the remaining communal owners here? It's number 5 and number 3 only.
لأنه 5 مقابل للمخرج ورقم 3 إلى آخر الدرب.
So why only 5 and 3 are not number 1 is because number 5, he is opposite the balcony, and number 3, he is further inside the balcony, so he has to pass by that area.
ولا يلزم أن يستأذن من رقم 1 لأن هذا إلى رأس الدرب.
So number 1, he does not have to seek permission from his neighbor. Number 1, why? Because his entrance is close to the exit.
واضح هنا؟ واضح هنا؟
Is it clear?
عندنا المسألة الثانية أن يكون المخرج هو من كان من أهل الدرب.
So now we're in scenario. So the scenario we discussed previously was where the person who wants to construct something is not of the people of the communal thing, of the communal cul-de-sac, such as number 2. He doesn't have a door there. Now we're going to discuss a scenario where the person who wants to construct something, he is part of the communal owners of the communal cul-de-sac.
مثلا نقول رقم 1.
So for example, number 1.
أراد أن يفعل هنا مثلا بلكونة.
For example, he wants to build a balcony inside the communal cul-de-sac.
قال يستأذن من بقية الشركاء.
So then he has to seek permission from the remaining communal owners of the.
من بقية الشركاء هنا؟
Who are the communal owners of the rights here?
رقم 3 ورقم 5 لأن هؤلاء إلى آخر الدرب.
Number 3 and number 5. Why? Because they are deeper inside the cul-de-sac.
إلى هنا واضح؟ طيب إذا أراد رقم 5 يفعل بلكونة يستأذن من؟ قال من بقية الشركاء. من بقية الشركاء هنا؟
So number 5, if he wants to build a balcony inside the communal cul-de-sac, right, he has to seek permission from the remaining communal owners of the cul-de-sac. Who are the remaining communal owners of the cul-de-sac in his case?
نقول رقم كم؟ رقم 3.
In this scenario, we say only number 3.
ولا يلزم أن يستأذن من رقم 1 لأن رقم 1 إلى رأس الدرب.
We don't have to seek. He doesn't have to seek permission from number 1, house number 1. Why? Because number 1, he is further out of the. He's closer to the exit of the cul-de-sac.
فإذا أراد رقم 1 أن يمنعه ما يحق لك أن تمنعه. إذا رقم 3 أراد أن يمنعه له حق أن يمنعه. So
number 1, if number 1 says no, you can't build a balcony in the cul-de-sac, he has no right to prevent him from doing that. Number 3, however, if he says you cannot build a balcony into the cul-de-sac, he has the right to do so.
طيب لو قال أنا قال رقم 3 أنا سأصالحك أو هو قال سنفعل صلح. قال صالحتك من فعل بلكونة على 1000 دينار. يقول لا يصح لأن لا يصح على يفعل عقد على الهواء.
So number 3 then refuses. So can number 5 engage a contract of reconciliation where number 5 pays number 3 a certain 1,000 dinar, for example, in order to build the inside the communal cul-de-sac? And the answer is no. Why? The same answer given before is that you cannot engage in a contract where you're purchasing or selling the rights of the heir.
طيب الآن نتكلم على فتح الشبابيك.
We're going to discuss now opening up windows.
من أراد أن يفعل الشباك سواء كان من أهل الدرب أو من غير أهل الدرب يجوز لهم ذلك مطلقا. رضوا ولا ما رضوا؟
So, for example, can anyone open up a window inside or outside of the cul-de-sac? And the answer is yes. Whether they are people that have the rights to the cul-de-sac or not. For example, number 3 and number 6 and number 4, they don't have rights in, but they can build windows into the cul-de-sac without the permission of the others.
حتى سواء كان من أهل الدرب أو من خارج الدرب.
Whether they are considered part of the people of the communal cul-de-sac or not.
لأنه تصرف في ملكه في ماله.
Because it's simply just him, he has the right to utilize his wealth as he pleases.
ولا في ضرر على غير.
And there's no harm occurring to anyone else with a window.
قال لك إن يا شيخ هذا لو فتح الشباك هنا سينظر ما نحن نفعله بيته كبير مثلا.
What about the scenario where, but if this person opens up a window into the cul-de-sac and his house is very tall, now he's going to look into what we're doing in our houses.
نقول يجوز أن يفتح الشباك ولك أن تمنعه من أن ينظر.
So he has the right to open up the window, but you have the right to tell him to stop looking.
لكن هو بغى يفتح الشباك بغى الإضاءة بغى الشمس.
Because he wants to open up the window so they get sunlight.
لأن غرفة ما فيها شمس يكون غرفة متعبة.
So if a house which has no sunlight is a house which is it's difficult to live in.
كان يقول بعض الصحيحين غرفة لا يدخلها الشمس لا أدخلها.
So some of the Sahaba said that some of the Salihin said that when a house which has no light entering, I won't enter that house.
لما يكون فيها شيء من أضرار من هذه الأمور.
Because there's some harm that occurs when there's no light entering in a house.
نعم. يقول عندنا ماذا؟ الآن نتكلم على فتح الباب.
Now we're going to we discussed building structures in the air. Now we're going to discuss opening up a door.
نعم. عندنا يقول ماذا؟ الآن عندنا نتكلم على الشركاء الذين هم في داخل الدرب.
So now we're going to discuss, again, looking at the picture there, of those who are considered communal owners of the communal cul-de-sac. Right?
قد يكون أحد الشركاء يريد أن يقدم الباب أو يؤخر الباب.
So if one of the communal owners of the rights of the cul-de-sac wants to move his door forward or move his door back, what do we do?
ما معنى تقديم الباب؟ تقديم الباب أي تقديم الباب إلى رأس الدرب.
What does it mean when you say you move your door forward? It means you're moving your door forward towards the exit of the cul-de-sac.
تأخير الباب أي تأخير الباب إلى آخر الدرب.
Moving your door back means moving your door back towards the depth of the back of the cul-de-sac.
مثلا عندنا رقم واحد.
For example, house number 1.
مثلا يريد أن يقدم الباب. أين يقدم الباب؟
So number 1, he wants to move his door forward. When you say moving his door forward, what does that mean?
يقدم الباب هنا.
He means moving his door closer to the exit of the cul-de-sac.
إلى رأس الدرب.
Because that is where the cul-de-sac is.
كيف يعني يؤخر الباب؟ يؤخر الباب إلى هنا أي إلى آخر الدرب.
When we say that he's going to move his door backwards, what does it mean? It means he move his door towards the closed part of the cul-de-sac.
كذلك عندنا قلنا مثلا رقم 5.
Similarly, number 5.
أين يقدم الباب هنا؟ إلى رأس الدرب.
What does it mean to move his door forward? It means to move his door forward is closer to the exit.
وأين يؤخر الباب؟ يؤخر الباب إلى رأس الدرب.
Moving his door backwards means moving his door closer to the back of the cul-de-sac.
مثل رقم 3.
Similarly, number 3.
طيب هل يجوز تقديم الباب وتأخير الباب؟
Is it permissible for them to move the door forward or backwards?
قال يجوز تقديم الباب في الدرب المشترك.
It is permissible.
على الشريك طبعا.
It is permissible for those who are communal owners of the rights of that bab in those 1, 5 and 3 to move the door تقديم. What أخير? What تقديم?
تقديم.
So to move the door forward is permissible for those who are communal owners of the rights of the communal cul-de-sac.
بشرط
1, 5 and 3.
بشرط أن يسد الباب القديم.
With the condition that they close the original door.
مثلا رقم 1 إذا أراد يقدم الباب هنا يجب عليه أن يسد الباب القديم هذا يسده تماما.
So if he opens up a door, makes his door closer to the opening of the cul-de-sac, then he must close the original door.
فإذا أراد يفتح باب مع هذا الباب فللشركاء أن يمنعوه.
So if he wants to open up 2 doors, he wants to have his original door plus a new door that's closer to the opening of the cul-de-sac. The other communal owners of the cul-de-sac have the right to prevent him from doing that, opening the second door.
أما إذا سيفتح الباب هذا وسيغلق هذا فليس له حق أن يمنعوه.
But if he closes the one and he opens the new one that's closer to the exit, then they don't have a right to prevent him from doing that.
أما تأخير الباب لو أراد مثلا يفتح باب هنا في آخر الدرب إلى جهة آخر الدرب، مثلا قال أنا سأسد الباب وسأفتح الباب هنا، سيفعل الباب إلى آخر الدرب، ما حكمه؟ نقول يجوز ذلك بإذن الشركاء.
So now
لا يجوز إلا بإذن الشركاء.
So in the scenario now where he's moving his door backwards, meaning closer to the closed part of the cul-de-sac, if he does so and he closes his original door, he can only do so if he gets the permission of the other communal owners of the communal cul-de-sac.
من هم الشركاء هنا؟
Who are the communal owners of the cul-de-sac in this scenario?
سيكون رقم 5 ورقم 3.
5 and 3.
إذا هو يستأذن من 5 إذا أذن له كان له يفتح باب إلى آخر الدرب.
So he gets permission from number 5 and 3, and if they give him permission, then he has the right to build the door closer to the closed portion of the cul-de-sac.
سواء سد الباب القديم أو لم يسده، ما دام هم رضوا بفتح باب جديد له يجوز له ذلك.
Even if the original door remains open in the scenario, if they give him permission, then it's permissible for him to do so.
نعم. يقول طيب أما إذا كان واحد من غير أهل الدرب اللي هو رقم عندنا رقم 6 مثلا أو رقم كم؟
6 و4.
مثلا نقول 6 و4 أرادوا يفتحوا باب داخل الدرب، ما حكم ذلك؟
Number 6 or number 4, they are not owners of the rights to the cul-de-sac. Can they open up a door inside the cul-de-sac?
نقول يجوز له أن يفتح الباب، مثلا نقول رقم كم؟ نقول رقم 4 أو نقول رقم 6 أراد يفتح الباب داخل الدرب، نقول يجوز له ذلك بشرط أن يأذن جميع الشركاء في الدرب.
So those who want to enter, now basically they're entering into becoming owners of the communal owners of the area. They're not, number 4 and 6 are not. So when they open up a door into the communal area, they need to get permission of everyone who is inside the communal area.
فلو أراد رقم 6 أن يفتح الباب يستأذن من من؟
So number 6, if he wants to open up a door for inside the communal cul-de-sac, who does he get permission from?
نقول 1 3 5.
1 3 and 5.
لابد يستأذن من جميع الشركاء، فإن أذن له فتح الباب.
So then he gets permission from everyone, and then if they get permission, then he can open up the door.
ولو أن يصالحهم بمال، هنا الصلح، ولو أن يصالحهم بمال، يأخذوا مال على يفتح باب داخل الدرب، يجوز ذلك.
In this scenario here, right, number 6, for example, he can now, if they refuse, unless they receive payment, he can now engage in the contract of reconciliation in lieu of opening up the door inside the communal cul-de-sac. Here it's permissible.
عجيب. هنا يصح الصلح، نعم، لأن هنا الباب غالب يكون على أرض ليس على هواء.
In the scenario here, the contract of reconciliation is permissible for him to pay them for the right of opening up the door on the ground inside there. Why? Big difference, because in the other scenarios, the structure built was in the air. Right? Here the structure is on the ground.
طيب جميل. في عندنا مسائل جميلة كذلك، مسألة جميلة نختم بها.
No, so this is the last issue we're going to discuss, and inshallah we'll end with that.
عندنا بناء دكة أو غرس شجرة خارج ملكك.
What is the permissibility of building a platform or planting a tree outside of your property?
مفهوم الدكة.
زي المكان الذي يرجى زراعي يعني مرتفع.
عندنا أو يغرس شجرة مثلا.
Or to plant a tree.
خارج البيت لكنه مقارب يسمى في حريم البيت.
So for example, can I build or put a tree or put a platform just outside my house such that it is considered next to my, like almost on my property, but it's not part of my house?
قالوا الشافعي معتمد الشافعي إن هذا حرام لا يجوز.
So in the official position of the Shafi'i school, it's not permissible for you to do that.
لماذا حرام؟
Why is it haram?
لما فيه من تضييق للطريق.
Because when you build in that area outside of your house, even though it's attached to your house, you are taking from the road, right? And you are restricting the road.
هذا بيبني جنب بيت شجرة، هذا بيبني جنب بيتي شجرة، هذا بيبني جنب بيت شجرة. بتزحم الشجرة بتضايق الطريق.
So for example, one person puts a tree there and builds a platform there, then the next person builds a platform and a tree there, and etc. And this goes on. Eventually, there's no road. Everyone's it's a forest.
كذلك قد تزدحم المارة.
Or for example, the people who are traveling through, they can sometimes get a crowd can sometimes come through.
فيعطل فإما يكون في أعمى مثلا فيسقط فيتضرر بهذا الفعل.
For example, so if you have a tree in the road, a person that's blind maybe might fall.
كذلك إذا طالت المدة أشبه موضعه موضع الأملاك، يعني سيظن الورثة فيما بعد أن هذا قطعة ملكهم، هو ليس ملكهم أصلا.
So for example, you build a platform just outside your house or a tree just outside your house. So this appears it's part of your house. So the generations who come after say, oh, this is part of our house. That platform it's part of our property, but it was never part of your property. It's actually part of the road. So it has the potential for people to think in the future that it's actually part of your property when it actually isn't.
هذا على معتمد الشافعي.
That is the official position of the Shafi'i school.
وهناك قول جميل للإمام السبكي.
So there's a position of one of the ulama of the Shafi'i madhab, al-Imam Subki.
قال الإمام السبكي ينبغي جوازها عند انتفاء الضرر.
So then he says the official position is that even if there is, in all scenarios, it's not permissible. Imam Subki says that if you are certain that there is no harm that's going to ensue, then it is permissible.
بحيث قال بعض العلماء بحيث يكون هذا الضرر لا يحتمل عادة.
Such to a degree that there's no harm which can customarily be, there's no harm which occurs which customarily wouldn't be able to be borne by anyone.
يعني ضرر شديد.
For example, if there's a severe harm which occurs, people can't ordinarily take this burden because of the construction that's done, then this wouldn't be permissible.
كان سيبني أشجار كبيرة مثلا سيتعطل مرور السيارات بهذا الفعل مثلا.
For example, you put large trees there, and then the cars that go by will get damaged as a result of the trees that are there.
أما إذا كان ضرر يسير يحتمل عادة فيجوز ذلك.
But according to the position of Imam Subki in the Shafi'i school, he says that if there's a small amount of harm which occurs, which is ordinarily people can bear that amount of difficulty, then that is permissible for them to put the tree there. That's not the official position; it's the position of Imam Subki.
في هذا تيسير على عامة الناس.
And on that position, it's easy for the majority of people to act upon.
والله أعلم.
Allah knows best.
ما شاء الله انتهى الوقت. طيب من عنده سؤال من الرجال وسؤال من النساء أو سؤالين من الرجال.
Where's the question?
Does it have to be something that's physically built or constructed? What if you have a tree in your property, but the branches of it extends outside into the balcony, into the cul-de-sac?
أغصان الشجرة الذي كان أصله في الملك وطالت الأغصان حتى تظل المارة مثلا.
ما في إشكال، المهم إنه لا يحصل هناك ضرر.
As long as there is no harm occurring.
فإن كان سيارات سيضرها هذا الشيء فلا لابد من قطعها.
So if the scars, for example, are getting damaged by the tree branches which are coming over, then you need to, it's obligatory for you to cut the tree.
أما إذا دخلت أغصان أشجار عندنا إلى بيت آخر فلحق البيت آخر أن يقول له خذها ولا يجوزه أن يقطعها إذا لا يريد.
So for example, if your branches are crossing over to someone else's property, right? Then that the neighbor then has the right to tell you to cut your branches. And if you don't cut your branches, then he has the right to cut the branches.
أول شيء نشوف في سؤال من النساء.
There is a question from the ladies before we get to the next question from the men.
هات سؤالك.
نعم. المكان الذي كان يعني فيه اسمنت سلي يعني مثلا البيت زي مثل بيتكم سلي امام بابك يعني فيه اسمنت يعني مرتفع شوي. نعم. المكان اللي للمشاة حتى تمشي عليه. هل هذا يعتبر من الشارع؟
هذا
وهناك مكان للسيارات. عفوا. نعم. ولكن المكان يعني يبنى للمشاة حتى تمشي
يعني هذا المكان مش أنا
نعم صح. ولكن هل يجوز لك يعني أن تضع مثلا شجرة يعني في كثير من الناس يفعلون هذه الأشياء حتى وهو يقول أنه يعني المشاة لا يمكن لهم يعني المرور بسبب هذه الأشجار الموجودة، فحتى ثم يمشي في
نعم. أول شيء
الشارع.
على المعتمد نقول لا يجوز ذلك.
فهو من الشارع.
وأصلا من الذي يبنيه؟ صاحب البيت.
صاحب البيت نعم.
يبنيه في حريمه.
نعم في حريمه.
المعتمد لا يجوز ذلك مطلقا.
نعم. So they say that portion you're building there in the official position of the Shafi'i school is not permissible.
وعلى قول السبكي إن كان هذا الشيء لا يضر بالمارة، إن كان هذا الشيء يضر بالمارة ضررا لا يحتمل عادة فحرام، وإلا يجوز ذلك.
So if it's the structure you're building there does not harm people ordinarily, then according to the position of Imam Subki, it would be permissible. If it does harm, then according to both positions, official as well as the position within our madhab, it's not permissible if the harm is caused there. لا.
آخر سؤال أقول له ماذا آخر سؤال؟
This is the last question.
Two-part question. Earlier we were speaking about, Sheikh was speaking about for example, if reconciling debt. So if they only agree to pay half, what happens if it's a large amount, like R1 million, and the zakah on that amount is due from the loaner?
Creditor.
Yeah, the creditor.
Yeah.
So what happens to the zakah due on that R1 million? Because he's only receiving half, and he's not able to pay unless he gets obviously the money back.
سؤال جميل. سؤال بالنسبة إلى مثلا زيد ادعى إلى عمر مليون ريال مثلا، فزيد هذا يعني له دين في ذمة هذا الشخص ويعرف بذلك، فعليه الزكاة وحال عليه الحول مثلا، ولكن بعد زيد so after the year has gone by, he gets access to the amount and he gets half of it. So the agreement occurs after the year. There's a year gone by. Yeah. 100%. But now as the year already gone by, so the zakah is due on the million.
Yes.
نعم. So الحال الحول في هذا المليون في ذمة هذا الشخص، ولكن بعد سنة
الحول على من؟ على زيد العمر. من اللي أخذ الدين ولا أعطاه الدين؟
هو زيد أعطى دين للأعمر.
تمام.
ودع على الأعمر أنا عليك الدين. طيب.
عليك الدين نعم.
طيب. فهذا الدين ملك لزيد.
نعم.
فحال الحول.
تمام.
نعم. فوجب الزكاة في المليون.
على زيد نعم.
طيب. ولكن يعني يتمكن على هذا الدين بعد صلح بنصف. ولا لا يتمكن من الدفع. هل يجب علي المليون أم نصف المليون؟ أبرأه على النصف.
أيوة نقول عندنا الزكاة وجبت في المليون.
So we say that the amount that is due is the million.
وجبت في المليون، لكن عندنا يجب عليه ذلك عندنا إذا يجب عليه في المليون مطلقا.
So but also notice that the amount that is owed is with regards to the capital amount of a million.
لو كان قبل انتهاء الحول كان لا بأس، لكن بعد الحول وجبت عليه الزكاة في المليون.
So if the reconciliation occurred before the year expired, then it would have been no problem for you to only have to pay a zakah on the half of the million, because it would have been before the year completed. But after the year completed, the zakah sits in, because you basically own that debt that exists in that on that person.
والله أعلم. هي الفاتحة مع صلاح شان ظاهر باطن من الآخرة. اللهم فقهنا مع صلاح شان وفقنا وذنوبنا واستر عيوبنا واشف كروبنا واصلح أحوالنا ظاهر باطنا السيئة معنوية مع كمال التوفيق محب ترضى. سر رسالة الفاتحة وإلى حضرة النبي. اللهم صل الفاتحة. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم صل وسلم. صلى الله عليه وسلم. الحمد لله رب العالمين.